Everybody, I am still here at ConX, and I'm sitting here with a fabulous actor, Mr. Alexis Cruz.
Hi,
And how are you doing today,
I'm
Alexis? Are
doing
you
great.
enjoying yourself here at
Yes,
ConX?
thank you. First time in Kansas City, and
Good.
having a great time. Yeah.
So, what projects do you have working on right now?
I just finished a feature film called Sightings, starring Christina Anapau and Mark Davis and David Weedoff, and we just finished it, so it should be out sometime either the end of the year or next year. Yeah,
And how long have you been in show business roughly?
almost 30 years. I know. I started when I was a child. I was 9 years old when I first started acting. And then I just grew up doing it, one thing after another, doing movies and television, started on commercials. And I love it.
Well, I thought you were really great in Why Do Fools Fall in Love,
Oh, thank
playing
you.
Ruben Santiago. I mean,
Mhm.
what was it like playing a true character, someone that, is a real person? Did you meet Ruben to
No,
play for
I
the
never
film?
met him, but it's a great question, particularly for me because I've actually done that several times. I seem to have a thing about playing real people, and it's odd because what I try to do is learn as much about the person's life as possible, obviously. But then also their mannerisms and what have you. But what I don't do is try to mimic the person exactly. I think that, and this could be different for different actors, but for me at least, if I find that if I try to really mimic the person entirely, it tends to come off more as a caricature, an impersonation, rather than something true life. And I think what you liked about Why Do Fools Fall in Love and what other people have commented about my other true life roles is that I'll take the spirit of the person, and sort of make that my own and fill it with my own. So you're seeing a little bit of both that person and Alexis, because Alexis is the agency for that to come out. So even though some of these people are still alive, I feel like I'm channeling their essence. And if you get their essence, then you can tell their story honestly. And then it doesn't matter what the person looked like and where it was and when it was. It doesn't matter. You just get a sense of the feeling of that person. And it does them justice, I think. I think every time we've worked that way, it's been appropriate, and I've gotten really great feedback, sometimes from the person I've played, saying, wow, you really got it right, it felt like me and all that. So I enjoy doing it.
Well, that's awesome, and it definitely comes through on screen.
Thank you.
Without a doubt, you're a phenomenal actor.
Thank you.
I enjoy your work tremendously. How do you select the scripts that you do?
By whoever wants to hire me. Can't be too picky in today's economy. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. No, I'm kidding. No. It's a little bit of both, obviously, because I'm not a big name star that can really pick and choose his roles. There's certain things that I won't do. I think it's really important for any person in the public, any artist, to control their narrative. A lot of my artist friends and I talk about that a lot. That for us to control our narratives, and that means being selective and being discerning about what you take. Sometimes it's your expectations of a project can change as well along the way. So you'll get into a project that you have a really good feeling about, and then it just turns into a train wreck. And then there's other times, there'll be projects that look like a train wreck at first, but once you start the process and get it going, it turns into something really, really beautiful. Stargate, strangely enough, was like that. When I first booked it, I was 18 at the time, and I hadn't worked in about a year, which for me, having worked since I was 9, was devastating. At the time, I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And my agent calls me up and he says, I have this audition for you for a small, independent sci-fi movie, and there's only 3 lines in it for you, Alexis, and none of them are in English, and I think you should pass. It's just, it's not a big enough thing for you at this point. And I was desperate. I said, no, I want to do it. Anyway. Just get me out there and going. So I did it, and left a great impression with the director and the producer, and booked it. And as we were going, Dean starts taking me. They flew me out to Los Angeles for the screen test, and starts taking me around the studio and the art department, and I start seeing the action figures that they're making and all of the art concept designs and all that. I'm going, what? This is not a small, low budget indie picture. What?
Exactly, it's a phenomenon.
It turned into this whole thing, you know, and my 3 lines that weren't in English turned into this major role in the movie. And then, you know, 20 years later, the TV series,
Right.
and I did SG1, and it's turned into this phenomenon, this worldwide thing that's been just beautiful.
I bet that was very surprising.
It was
too.
extremely surprising. It's still surprising, you know, it's still just that I get invited to different places and different conventions to meet the fans, everything that... It's strange because I grew up on Star Wars and Star Trek, and from the outside as a fan, and seeing the convention life and, you know, all of the stuff that surrounds the fandom of those shows, and you think that it only applies to that until it happened to me, you know, and the rest of our cast on Stargate, and we're like, oh my God, and you recognized immediately that you've become a part of history,
Yes.
you know, in a very profound way. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, really nothing can... Which is kind of tough, too, for the actors, because everyone always compares our work to that, when in fact we have all these other things. You know, I've got... Now you go on IMDb and you just scroll,
Yes,
scroll,
you have an illustrious career.
But everybody knows Stargate. That's
Right.
like the pinnacle of anything I will ever do, and you know, it's just not accurate. And there's no control that we have over how something blows up.
Exactly.
You know, how big it's going.
It's hit or miss.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we've got other movies and stuff that I've done that's far more prestigious. Other stuff that is, you know, more serious, kitchen sink. You know, stuff that I was up for awards for, but nobody ever knows about that stuff. You know, or half the time they can't put my name to my face. They'll either know my name or they'll know my face, but they don't put them together because I have an unusual name for a guy as well. So
Very unique.
all of those. Yeah. So it's a double-edged thing, you know. And then for an actor, we want to be... It's a strange thing. We want to be recognized, but at the same time, we don't want to be recognized, because each time that we're recognized, that takes a little bit away from our ability to be that chameleon, to really change, you know. So
And to make your life your own.
exactly, you know. I think I've managed to find a pretty good balance with my private life. I don't really get stalked or mobbed or anything like that.
Yet.
You know, I think I'm prepared for it because I've had enough years in the public spotlight, and I've got enough of a fan base and following that I and them are all prepared for it, and we have a really great relationship, and it's something that we've built over many years with my audience. So there's a mutual level of respect there that, you know, no matter how popular I've been at any given time, and it's always, you know, peaks and valleys, right? They're always really respectful and really supportive, and I've never had issues with my privacy, which has been fantastic.
That's great.
It gets a little harder these days because everything's about Twitter and Facebook
gosh.
and being popular.
Social media,
and all of that
yes.
stuff, you know.
Yes.
But that gets hard too, because the more the public knows you, the real you, on the one hand, they're like, oh, we want to see the real you. On the other hand, the more the real you they see, the less they spend money on your movies.
Right.
You know, the less they can believe you're whoever you're supposed to be, because they just keep seeing Alexis. That's always sort of the danger of being a celebrity, whereas most of us really want to just remain actors, not celebrities per se. And
Because it's a craft. It's
a
an
craft.
art.
Exactly. It's very challenging, you know, to walk that line between your craft and what you're supposed to do for your job and for the narrative, and for, you know, the public consumption. And because the public consumption gets you your next job at the same time, you know, it's catch-22.
Now, how would you describe your acting style? I know there are some that are method actors. How do you prepare for a role?
I have different ways of preparing for it. Depends on what the project is, whether it's television, whether it's film, whether it's theater, how much time I have to prepare as well.
Which is most challenging, television or the film?
Film is probably the most challenging, because you're stretching a little bit more, because it's a one-shot deal for film. You're stretching a little bit more to really create a character from scratch, right? On television, aside from guest starring stuff, but let's say a recurring role or a series regular role, you have to prepare for the fact that you're going to be playing this role for, could be 5 years, could be 10 years, you know. SG1 went on for 10, 11 years.
And it's in syndication now.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Touched by an Angel, 10 years, you know. So if you, it was like in Tropic Thunder when Robert Downey was like, never go full retard.
Right.
Because if you do, then you're stuck doing that for like 10 years,
Exactly.
you know? And that drives people crazy. So you have to find something that's very comfortable for you to play, and that is connected to who you are. You still want to stretch a little bit. You want to, you know, bring that craftsmanship to it. But you have to, you know, everything has to fit properly for you to be comfortable for the next decade, potentially, you know? So it depends. I'm not really a method actor per se. There's very few method actors left in the world, and I think that's because of all of the dangers inherent psychologically in that kind of thing. And there's not a lot of people. Most actors aren't as prepared for that anymore. It can be done. It just takes a lot of discipline, a lot more craftsmanship, because there's a lot more than just the acting techniques. There's a lot of sort of self-help techniques that you need to learn along the way, which I did learn. So I'm sort of a half method actor, and I was my training was in classical theater. Stanislavski method was what was my foundation. I graduated from the School of Performing Arts in New York, which, if you or your audience remember that show Fame,
yes,
that was my school. I graduated from that school.
Nice.
It really kind of was like the TV show.
Cool.
There was a lot of dancing and singing in the hallways. Not as choreographed, but it did happen, and it was a lot of fun. And we were just excellently trained. One of the best centers for theater training, music, art, whatever it is, dance in the world, and it still is. To this day, we're really proud of having been there. But we had a real foundation in the classics, and so I come at it from that point of view, from a method point of view. But it's 2012, and a little older, you know what I mean? You can't go all the way with that early.
Right.
Might
have you ever bounced back?
You know? Yeah.
I can definitely see the dangers of that.
Yeah.
So since you've had such a long career in show business, what advice would you give to up-and-coming actors who are wanting to break into the business?
There's so much advice to give. There's so much to learn. It's a lifetime. First of all, it's a lifetime's journey to really do it. You know, there's a lot of ways to get rich quick, and there's a lot of ways to get popular real quick, but that doesn't make an actor, and it certainly doesn't make for the longevity of your career. And nowadays, well, it's always been, but I think it's probably more critical these days that you look towards the longevity of your career, because there's so much of this 15-minute fame happening, you know, and it's real easy because of the economics of the world to get caught up into something that's a quick buck or a quick exposure, and you end up killing your career before it begins. So you have to decide who you are, which is a lifelong process. You have to decide what you want as an actor. Who do you want to be? Not necessarily come into it as, I want to be an actor because I want to play all these different roles. I want to be someone other than me. That's probably the wrong approach to take. I think you want to take the approach of, I want to be the most authentic self that I can be. And then once you've gotten that, you can really start delving into other people's stories. And when you find the commonality between your story and someone else's story, that's where the acting starts coming in, and that craftsmanship and the technique, because then you start connecting all of those sort of mental fibers between you and your audience. And it's in those commonalities that you're splicing and taking those moments and putting together. And when you string them together on screen, there's a sense of the familiar that your audience gets, and they're with you for the performance once they get that, you know. So they're watching the story, and they're also watching a bit of themselves. Even if they're a stranger to that story, there's always, you know, that human connectivity. So learning and educating yourself in all of the humanities is paramount. Like, and there's a lot of people, they don't like social studies, they don't like history, and it's boring, what have you. No, you got to learn it.
Right.
You got to learn it, and it's not boring. Like, the deeper you get into it, the more worlds open up and stories open up. So you have to be a humanitarian, I think, to be an actor, to be a good one, to be a happy one. let's say. There's plenty of unhappy actors. There's plenty of selfish
Oh
actors.
my goodness, yes.
But I think to be a good and happy one, because you're not going to be on screen all the time. You're not going to have people, wanting your autograph all the time. So you got to sort of take care of yourself and be cool. Don't be an arse, right? Should be rule number one. And learn the humanities. Study social studies and history and art history and psychology, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, political science, get to know the world, your neighbors, kind of thing. Those are all really good foundations to have as a person, but especially as an actor, because that's your job. You're communicating stories from one thing to a whole set of other people. You're that middleman who has to translate those stories.
Yes. Just one more question. What is your favorite film and why?
That's hard to say. I've watched so many films, and you look at films differently when you're in the business, so you judge them differently. There's a lot of movies that are really, really great, acclaimed movies that I just don't like. I just am like, thought they were boring for this or that. Yeah. And then there's also really awful movies that nobody likes.
But they were good.
I love them. Armageddon. What? It was great. The music swells. The heroes are walking in slow motion. Stuff's blowing up. What's not to like about that? I mean, I didn't go there to watch The King's Speech.
Right.
Which was phenomenal.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Sucker Punch. I loved Sucker Punch. I went with like 50 people.
That.
There was only 2 of us that really enjoyed it. I came out like going, oh my God, that was so great.
I didn't give that one that great of a review, I have to admit. But, I mean, revisiting it and watching it like on HBO and things like that, you get to when you're watching it as a spectator and not as a critic, because I'm a film critic as well.
Right.
And when you're watching it just as a spectator, just for the love of the film, just for the joy of just watching something, you can appreciate it in a different light.
Right. Exactly.
So
I have different.
Action was pretty cool.
different lists of sort of favorite films for different reasons, I guess. But no real favorite film. I don't really have a favorite anything. I guess it's like having children. You can't really have a favorite.
Kid.
You're not really allowed to.
It would be wrong.
Different strengths, different ones,
Right.
And I try to keep an open mind, and also because you're right. When you come at it as a critic, you have different standards. But as an actor, I think because we need to keep in touch with that audience, and I said, keep that commonality of society and humanity, it's really important to me to watch movies and watch television for the first time with an open mind, the way random other person would just watch it, and not get caught up in the lighting or the performances or any of that other stuff, Just watch it normally the first time. And if you still don't like it, if it still sucks, all right, then it sucks,
There are many movies that have.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. I've probably been in a couple.
Not that I remember, you have not, but have you ever gone to the movie theater and maybe sat in the back and just watched audience reactions to some of your films?
I have, yeah. To some of my stuff, yeah, I have. Not often, because usually we get pretty immediate feedback, especially online these days anyway.
Okay.
But you're right, there's nothing like being in the theater and actually watching people's reactions to stuff. I don't think I've ever been disappointed yet, thankfully.
Well, you're a phenomenal actor, so I don't see why you would.
Well, thank you. I think it's really because the times I've done it have been my big good stuff that have come out of the theater, and the other stuff I don't bother doing.
Well, it's been such a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you.
Yes. This is Celebrity Chats with Crystal, and we are still here at ConX, and we have Alexis Cruz. Thank you for being with us today, Alexis.
Thank you.
And peace out.